the music has stopped, that could mean one thing. You're back with the boys from the BoomBastiCAST. And we get a fun episode with y'all today. You know what I mean? Alex, what do you think?
I think so. I mean, we have a great guest for you today. She's very talented, and anyone who has been a fan of martial arts, Hong Kong films from the 80s, the 90s, just plain great action films, you'll know her and you'll love her. It's Cynthia Rothrock. She
Yep.
is phenomenal. I mean, I remember watching her films, and I was like, my God. I mean, when you're watching these action films, I mean, you have to have a lot of talent to do all the martial arts and all that.
Yeah.
But every time I watched it, I was always memorized because moving so fast, everything was fluid, and
Mesmerized. Yeah.
I mean, just amazing. She's a lot of fun. Great person to talk to, as you'll find out on the show. And,
Sweetheart.
and she's been on so many, great films from like Yes, Madam to Magic Crystals, um, No Retreat, No Surrender 2.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
you know,
Jean Claude.
yeah, China O'Brien. She was in
One
one one.
and two.
Yeah,
Fast Getaway. Martial Law, brother. I was a big fan of these films, still am. Like I've talked about on the show before, not to cut out the Hawk, even though I just definitely took charge of the show. That was take charge of the show energy. I just came in with heavy. But as long as I love the Hawk so much. Big fan. Every Friday night at the Fisher household, the old Fisher compound, we would go to the good old mom and pop, mom and pop before Blockbuster and Hollywood Video came to town. And we would always rent two types of movies. We would rent an action film for my Papa Dukes, and then we'd rent a comedy film for my Mama Dukes. But it was ones that we could all get down with, you know what I mean? And 80s and 90s action, love them. I don't care if they're made for $500 billion or if they're made for $500. Loved them. You know what I mean? And a lot of these films came across my eyeballs. And I've never made an action film, but if I was to make an action film, it would slide along the lines of this. We got a whole bunch of cool stuff we talk about on this. She's a sweetheart of a person. She's been doing it for a good amount of time. I won't say a long time, because that could be insulting. You know what I mean? Alex has been doing it a long time.
yeah, yeah.
You- you-
I'm more of the one getting the kicks than giving the kicks, but
that works too. That works too. But super talented, you know what I mean? Usually in a situation, maybe not usually, but oftentimes in situations where somebody comes in and they're good for one thing, like the martial arts and the element to do that, that their acting might not always be there. Might say something like a Jean-Claude Van Damme. Some people may say, I like him, but some people might say might not be able to act himself out of a wet paper bag.
well,
But he can sure throw a kick. Our guest today can do both fantastically, throw kicks and act, you know what I mean? And it was a pleasure to have her on. And my favorite part of this episode thus far is we get into a film called The Executioner that I didn't even know about. And
okay.
I've got a book or two about films that were, developed that never got done made. And I always reading and learning about those types of things. And today's no different, ladies and gentlemen, because that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna learn about that film with the great William Friedkin, rest in peace, and Sly Stallone. But Cynthia's been a part of so many cool things, a multi genre. I feel she jumps around a little bit. You know what I mean? Got some comedy in there, got some action, doing it big. I'm excited to hear about her new film, Black Creek. I know that our good fellow guest and friend of the show, Patrick Kilpatrick, was in it. I first heard about the film via him. You know what I mean? Um, and I'm going to talk about a stunt that he did on this show. And I got to say, Alex remembers this. He came on our show, and I remember I was on his Facebook page after the fact, and Alex, or Kilpatrick rather. I think he just turned like 25 or something like that. I forget how old he is, but he's a little older. Maybe he's 27, and he
Nah, I think he's 19, but
he threw himself into a ditch, and it blew my mind in dedication to this dude, like the dedication to the craft and the act and making things look good. It blew my mind because I wouldn't have thrown myself into a ditch the way he did. And that always reigns supreme with me. But we're not here to talk about Patrick. He'll be on the show again in the future. We'll talk about the ditch. And best believe, if when he's on again, if I don't bring up that ditch, y'all can tar and feather me, because I remember my mind was literally blown apart when I seen him do that. But Cynthia, today, fantastic episode. You know what I mean? We're about to dish you something really cool. If you were a child or teenager of the 80s and 90s that often frequented the VHS stop, you're definitely probably gonna know about one of these films, that or maybe multiple that came across, and she's still going. I love it. When I say long time, though, it's not an insulting thing. Having longevity in this business is a blessing. Some people don't ever get to do anything. You know what I mean? Or they'll do something. None of their work will ever get, seen by anybody outside of like their friends that hold film festivals and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's time to pop up into the show. You know, what do you think?
I totally agree. I say let's bring her on, and let's sit down and talk to her about all these great projects he's been a part of.
So, Cynthia Rothrock, for the first time of many times, welcome to the BoomBastiCAST. Cynthia, welcome to the BoomBastiCAST.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. It's a pleasure. We've been fans of you for a long time, so it's definitely going to be a good time, sitting down with you and chatting about the workings of doing it big. You know what I mean? So, like I said, we're filmmakers, and we usually like to start from the beginning. So I know martial arts played like a big part of your career in the beginning and going forward. Where did you catch the bug for like entertainment in general, I guess we can say?
Well, let's see. Well, it's interesting because I started martial arts when I was young, and I've been doing it ever since. And throughout my journey, it brought me to New York to study with Shum Liang, Eagle Claw Kung Fu. And after we were training, he would always take us into Chinatown, and that's where I was first introduced to Chinese movies and fighting. Yeah, I have not, I haven't really seen anything before. I think maybe I saw Enter the Dragon. That was about like the only martial art movie I saw, but I've never seen any Chinese ones. And I saw my first movie was Snake in the Eagle's Shadow with Jackie Chan.
Mm.
And I went crazy. I was like, oh my God, I love the way this guy moves. I love the snake style. I would go home and practice it. And I liked watching these movies, and I liked taking the moves and practice them. I never really thought about having a career in movies. I just loved taking the action scenes and doing them at home. And one day I moved to California. Like I've had so many journeys in martial arts, but I'm training with the West Coast demonstration team. And the editor of Inside Kung Fu was Paul Maslick at the time, and he said there's a Hong Kong director here, and he's looking for a new Bruce Lee. And we were on the West Coast team, and the guys were phenomenal. And Arnie said, well, should we bring the girls? And they're like, yeah, you can, but they're really looking for a guy. So we all flew down to Los Angeles. We were up in San Jose, and it was at Heel Cho's studio, which was a big martial arts studio. And there must have been about 700 people there auditioning. And Corey Yoon was the one that was doing the auditioning. And he was doing it for MC Yoon with Seasonal Films. And I did some form, I did fighting, I did self-defense, and I did some weapons. And then Corey said to me right then and there, he goes, I want to go with the girl. So they signed me up for a contract. And I still, at this point, I didn't think I was going to have a career in film. I thought ooh, this is a new experience. I'll be in one film. And it was funny. In my mind, I'm thinking someday maybe I'll be on the poster and I could show my kids and say, hey, look, your mom was in a movie. And I just thought it was one movie. That was it, an experience. So I went off to Hong Kong, and my first movie actually wasn't with seasonal films. It was with Yes, Madam, because I did something on World News Tonight with Peters Jennings, which was a big show here in
Yeah.
America. And they saw me on the cover of Karate Illustrated, and they called me and they said, we want to do an interview with you. So it aired in Hong Kong, and they were like, look out, Hong Kong, here she comes. Well, Sammo Hung saw this in Hong Kong and said, who is this girl? Where's she coming in Hong Kong? And Corey Yoon said she has a contract with MC Yoon. So he said, I want to use her in Yes, Madam. That was my first movie. And at that time, I had a goal that I wanted to be 5 years undefeated in competition. And I was at 4.5 at the time we were doing the movie. So I was like, I can't not be number one. This has been my goal, to be 5 years undefeated. So
Yeah.
I was going back. And then during the time of filming Yes, Madam, which took 8.5 months to shoot, right? I became number one, and then I wanted to retire from competition, because that was my goal. Is like I competed over, oh my gosh, hundreds of times in these 5 years. It wasn't just 5 times. And I thought, I want to quit while I'm ahead. And I think it's a record that nobody could beat. So Yes, Madam became a big hit. And then Golden Harvest signed me for another contract. So at that point is when I said, oh, I'm going to transition from competition, competing professionally, into martial art movies. So it was during I wouldn't say during the first film, I'd say after, when it came out and it was a big success. That's when I got the bug to say, okay, this is going to be my profession from this point on.
That linked up perfectly for you. You know what I mean? With it, yeah, that was great. Do you
Yeah.
think that if you didn't get that achievement, do you think you would have still jumped into film?
Well, at that time, it wasn't very easy for women to be in action pictures. They really didn't have any in America. So I think no. I think if I didn't have that opportunity, because of the time frame, like if it's like today, yes, definitely. But no, I don't think if I had that opportunity, I probably would have went into film. I probably would have just been, teaching in martial arts. I had a school at the time, and I probably just would have, continued on the path of being a teacher.
Yeah. Creates great discipline, like the scheduling must have been tough, because I know, the discipline of just the martial arts, practicing, making sure that it's all, on the up and up and everything's smooth. It's like a muscle that always has to be kind of worked out, you know what I mean? And then you
Mhm.
add acting to it. It's like memorizing the dialogue. I know that
Yeah.
Alex is more the actor. I direct. To memorize, I always bring this up with actors. It's like, dude, memorizing dialogue is a superpower in itself. Like, I don't know how people do it so well. You know what I mean?
Well, it's funny because, I always say it was great that my first couple films, my first 7 films, were in Hong Kong, because their shooting is so different. We never had a script. We didn't know what the story was. You would just go on set and they would tell you that day. They didn't
Hmm.
shoot with sound, so they didn't really care what I said. They would just kind of say, this is kind of the idea, just make up your own words. And I remember when I first went over to Hong Kong, everybody was saying, because there was that it was just known that, the voices did not match the Hong Kong
Yeah,
dialogue, that
yeah.
people would be talking and then their mouth would still go. And they said, you don't want to do that. So I would literally say, how many syllables is in the Chinese word? And then I would put my own version to it, right? Because it was sound that didn't matter, So it was a good training experience for me. And when I did my first English movie, it was No Retreat, No Surrender. It was such a different experience, because, like, yes, now I have to study the lines. Now I have to study the script. And I basically wasn't sure, later on I took acting classes, but at this point I didn't. And I would just go, okay, well, you've got to study the whole script, because even when we did there, they didn't have like a call sheet, like, okay, these are this. And normally when people who kind of really get familiar with the script, and you study scene by scene, and you know ahead of time, okay, tomorrow we're shooting these scenes here. So you study those, the next day these, so you have an idea. Well, they didn't have that. You never knew what what we were shooting. And when we shot China O'Brien, which was my next English speaking movie, they
Yeah.
shot part 1 and 2 at the same time. So we didn't even have time to study the script. Like Robert Klaus was the director.
For sure. I was going to ask you about him,
Yep, he
Enter the
directed.
Dragon, Game of
Yeah,
Death, some of the biggest movies, from that genre of all time.
and Richard Norton and I would be in the office, and Robert Klaus would come in and say, "Oh, we're going to do a scene from the second movie," and we're like, "What? We didn't even look at that yet." He goes, "Doesn't matter. It's this, I'll tell you the line, and then you just say it." So, it was very crazy back in that day.
That's more my acting style, right?
It doesn't come off the greatest on film though that way.
Yeah. So how was working with Robert as a director?
It was different because, I was used to, with the Hong Kong directors, and his way of shooting was different than what I was used to shooting. And they brought over a couple stunt guys because they wanted, and Robert had an American that was a stunt coordinator. So they had two stunt coordinators. One was Chinese and one was American. And they wanted to kind of intermingle the ways that Chinese do the movie, the action, and the way Americans do. And I obviously liked the Chinese way because that was what, I was used to. And Robert Klaus liked the American way. He didn't really like it. And I know, like Robert Klaus would say many times on set, well, that's not how Bruce Lee shot it, because Robert wanted to shoot all the scenes all in one take, right? With just one angle. And in Hong Kong, they'll do that, but then they'll do about 60 takes of the same scene over and over, like just like Jackie Chan, they all do that. And then they cut it, and do, okay, just do this part, just do this part. And I was used to that, and I knew it was phenomenal on screen. So to me, it was, oh, is this going to look good? And I know there was a little bit of like, conflict because they were Golden Harvest was calling and saying, are you doing the action this way? And, so it's funny. China O'Brien is kind of a mixture of American and Chinese action direction.
Which is, it benefits from it. I think it might have been a little confusing on set, but I think it benefits for that,
Yeah, but I remember him saying, "Oh, this is the way Bruce Lee shoots," and I was like, "Oh, I haven't seen the movies. I think he shoots the Hong Kong style version."
Yeah. Yeah, man. Enter the Dragon. Yeah, Bruce Lee. And when did Bruce Lee pass away? Like early 70s, was it?
I think so. He passed away before I started, so I came to know him later on. But I think, the Hong Kong version, the fighting is very acrobatic, very complicated. Some Americans might say, "Oh, you can't fight that long and fall off the building and continue fighting," and stuff like that. So I
Right.
think that's more Robert was looking more for realism, and where even today I still like the Hong Kong action, because I think you could take anyone and train them how to do a front kick, how to do a punch, and they don't even have to be a martial artist, but to do Hong Kong films like we did back then, you can't do that. You can't fake it with an actor, where a lot of the easy stuff you can, So
Yeah.
I've always preferred the Hong Kong action because you really have to know what you're doing and be a very well-trained martial artist to do that type of action.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, Bruce Lee. I mean, Bruce Lee definitely was great, of course. And then Jackie Chan almost reinvented it when he came into the mix. And then there was like another reinvention around like was it Twin Warriors and like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, like when they started getting into that like a lot of rope work or wire
But
work.
they always did it. It's just
Okay.
interesting because Crouching Tiger, that just so happened to be a Hong Kong movie that got worldwide distribution. So that's the first time Americans really saw that type of action. But the Hong Kong, that's just like a typical, maneuver is wires. Like when I did Lady Reporter, we did a lot of wire work on that, so it's just part of how they're filming. And the interesting thing is it's not like America because they have so much time to shoot. I guess it wasn't that expensive, and a lot of times we'd be on set, you'd have a lot of actors and they go, "Oh, we're not shooting today because, he's shooting another movie, so we have to wait till he gets done. You know, so there was a lot of that where, you know, here you can't shoot two movies at one time. You have to be there and available, you know. So that's why, like, I think the shortest movie I ever did there was like 2.5 months. And that was Shanghai Express, because Sammo had to have it done for Chinese New Year's, which was coming up. And we shot round the clock. We shot 3 days in a row without going to a hotel.
Nice.
It was tough. Yeah, tough days, you know.
Nice.
I
Yeah.
gotta say, one of my favorite films of yours is Fast Getaway with you, Corey Haim, and
Yes.
that was a lot of fun. How was that? How did that film come about?
Well, after my contract was up with Golden Harvest, I got a contract with Sylvester Stallone to do a movie called The Executioner. And it was interesting because at that time it was a pay or play. William Friedkin was the director. The guys that wrote RoboCop, that just came out, they were the writers. And I thought, wow, this is crazy, because I remember William Friedkin called me when I was shooting China O'Brien, and I come in with Richard Norton and I get a message saying, call William Friedkin. And I said to Richard, I said, did you just put that here? And he's like, no. And I'm like, I'm thinking it's a joke. So the next day, right, because it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, I get up and I'm like, is William Friedkin there, like thinking, like, who is this? It's a joke. And he started saying, yeah, you know, I directed The Exorcist and I'm doing this movie with Sylvester Stallone and we want you to co-star in it. And you know, they flew me to LA. Joel Silver was the producer. They had the biggest of the biggest there. And at that time, Golden Harvest wanted to do China O'Brien 3 and 4. And Stallone put me with his attorney and his agent, big agent. Here I am, this little actor, right? And they said, you can't do those movies anymore. You can't do the Hong Kong movies. You're doing these, and these are going to be big. So of course I'm listening to it going, oh my God, I'm going to be doing a movie co-starring Sylvester Stallone. So I didn't do any more of the Hong Kong movies. And the Sylvester Stallone movie never went because he had a contract then to do, I think, a couple more Rambos and a couple more what was the other ones?
Rocky. Yeah.
Yeah. So he put that on the back holder. So I got paid to do that movie more than I ever got for any movie to this day, right? And now here I am, like, well, now what do I do? And William Friedkin's like, you got another movie, do it. And I'm like, but I don't have. So at that time, then I went and I did martial law, because the industry, you know, to buy movies, they knew that my movies really sold well. So then I started doing like the movies here, like in America, you know, from that point on. But unfortunately, it was like, welcome to Hollywood, because I thought there's no way this will never happen, you know.
Yeah. I'm always fascinated by those big movies that like don't pan out. It's kind of inspirational to like us underground filmmakers, you know,
Yeah.
like the same way that like Scorsese, when he made that Silence movie, it was like a religious movie that he's been wanting to make for 20 years. And it's just kind of the fact that he still has red tape and hurdles to cross at his level. It's kind of, yeah, it's an interesting thing. But The Executioner, huh? That's what it was called.
Yeah, it was Executioner. It was it was a series of books.
Okay.
And basically I want to say the character that Stallone was going to play was called Matt Bolan. And I was like the partner, the renegade cop, you know. And I remember during that time he was ready to shoot Tango and Cash. And I remembered he said, let me talk to the director and see if I could play the buddy part. And the director was like, no, I want a guy. And they got like Kurt Russell.
Kurt
So
Russell, yeah.
it's crazy. Like a lot of times in my career, I've been this close to an A-listed movie, but I still have hope. One of these days it'll happen.
Well, that's totally FUBAR, if I may use the term from the film. Yeah, and William Friedkin, that's great, because even though the film didn't pan out, just to have the interaction and relationship with him like that is super cool, because he's one of the greatest. Rest in peace. I think
Absolutely.
2 years ago, I think he passed. Very sad. Right before
Yeah.
the new Exorcist film came out. I
Yeah.
think the last thing he was saying in the media was like, oh, it was an abomination or something like that. But Yeah, Friedkin, legendary career, Exorcist, of course, The French
Yeah,
Connection. I
yeah.
mean, and he's one of those filmmakers. I always give kudos to him because he did like later in his career when you look at great filmmakers from like maybe the 80s or 70s, and by the time they get to the 2000s, they're still great, like what their work, but like they're not quite as great. But you take like Bug or like Killer Joe, which I thought was fantastic, you know what I mean? And Friedkin was still killing it up until
Yeah,
like the very end. Much kudos.
yeah.
And Stallone's always killing it. He's always doing it big over there. But I would love to have seen The Executioner, and I love
I
hearing.
know, right? Oh
Yeah,
my God. Yeah.
See, what we have to do is we have to call up Sylvester Stallone. We gotta get his number. Say, hey, you gotta do this movie. We've been waiting. Why aren't you
Yeah,
doing this
nobody's
movie?
ever done it. Nobody's ever done it, you
Yeah.
know? And it's such a great title, I think, The Executioner. You know?
he probably still owns the property because his production company
Yeah.
has big loot. You know what I mean? So they just
Yeah.
acquire it and keep it on the back burner. Maybe one day type
Yeah,
deal.
well, this was like in 1989, and he had his own company. I don't know if he still has it, but it was White Eagle. So I was contracted to White Eagle, actually to do a couple films.
If it's not White Eagle, it's still something. I think
Yeah,
he's like all those Expendables movies. I think is his production team, and
yeah,
what's he doing now? Like the Tulsa King or something like that's his new
Yeah.
thing.
yeah,
But
Yeah. He's now on TV, so he's taking
yeah,
over TV by storm.
yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah.
you brought up Martial Law, another great film. Carradine, David Carradine. Well, what was he? We're big fans. He seems. How is he to? eh, I take him to be a very quiet, little bit of sense of humor in there at times, but just a mellow, quiet guy. Is that pretty much what he's
Uh,
been dealing with, or?
well, it's interesting because when we shot um, Martial Law, uh, I didn't have too many scenes with him until the ending. I
Yeah.
think the ending, we were in the ending. But the interesting fact is a really good friend of mine that was renting like a little a guest house, I guess, on my property, became a manager for him and would travel to autograph shows like Comic Cons and stuff.
Okay.
I would go with them. So David and I actually became really good friends. We did a lot of things together, and he brought me in on a movie. I think it was in Spain, that we did the Spanish movie together and everything. But he was not quiet. He had a lot of stories. He was very intelligent. It was just fun listening to his stories, of his dad, of old Hollywood. He was very eccentric, and just very smart, very well into his acting. He took it very seriously, and yeah, it was really a very interesting person. Yeah, I remember one time, we used to, get Starbucks all the time, and he would order 12 shots of espresso in Venti. And I would go and get the coffee, and I'd be embarrassed to say 12 shots. And I'm like, can you give me 7? And they're like looking at me like 7 shots. And then I'd come back and goes, there 12 shots of espresso in here? I was like, yeah. 'Cause I couldn't literally ask for 12 shots of espresso.
You gotta,
Yes.
you gotta say it's for a 7-year-old kid. That's the only way to get away with it. That's what they wanted. That's how my niece would drink her coffee. Also, Tony Longo, rest in peace as well.
Yeah.
He's a dude. I've always, he didn't get the super success. Everybody don't know him, but like every time I've seen him in something, I've always appreciated him and
Yeah.
enjoyed him. You know what I mean? Do you have
Yeah.
good stories of like working around him?
Just that he was like he was one of the all-time great character actors.
Yeah.
Oh, it just was fun to be around him. And while I was at that time, I was used to just a lot of times acting just with martial art actors. So it was such a pleasure for me. Like, wow, I'm really working with someone that's done a lot of movies. I worked with Brad Dourif. you know,
Yeah.
some of them, Walter Koenig, you know, and it was just really interesting for me because just practicing lines with them and just trying to learn from them and watch how they react. And I remember I was Brad Dourif wanted to go over this scene from Sworn to Justice, and we're sitting in the trailer, right? And he had to cry in it, right? And we're just in the room, just him and he's crying his eyes out. And I'm thinking, wow, you're doing it at rehearsal, you know.
Yeah.
I'd have to save it for shooting because it might not come back again, you know.
Yeah.
And just, you know, just like, you know, that's how Tony was, you know, he just was so good in his role that, you know, you just learn a lot just from working, you know, opposite them. I think they just pull a better performance from you.
Yeah, so when they can do it like behind the scenes too, it's always it's super crazy. You know, Brad Dourif, a phenomenal actor. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
he's, you know, I think one of the burdens on him, I think, is that maybe not a burden's the wrong word, but like the child doing Chucky for Child's Play, like
Yeah.
people, I think certain people, especially in the horror world, might not understand how great he actually is because, you know, it's a great, the character of Chucky's really fun and stuff, but like you take like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Exactly. Academy Award winner.
Yeah, even like another horror movie called Trauma by Dario Argento
Yeah.
that he's in, and he's
Yeah.
like really good at it. In the third, to go
Lord of
back
the
to
Rings.
Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
to go back to Friedkin, he's in the third Exorcist,
Yeah.
and he's
Yeah.
like amazing in the third
Oh
Exorcist.
yeah, he was one of my favorites. So to me, it's like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm working with him, and we did our scene together, you know, where I'm like kind of like I'm the attorney, and I'm kind of, you know, getting him, you know, trying to get all this information out from him, and it gets heated, and he starts crying, going off into that. And I remember after the scene, he kissed me on the cheek, and he said that was an Oscar performance. Of course, it wasn't from me, but just that he was so good, you know, you know, you have to try to live up to that, you know. It's just like it just to watch him like he was like schizophrenic or something in it, and just watching the way he moved and act and stuff. Oh, I got the goose pimples right now because he's so brilliant.
It's like witnessing magic in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we were talking to another actor, Richard Burgi, and we were talking about how when he was on the set and like the star actress was getting a little annoyed because he thought he was like upstaging her or like taking the like focus away from her. And like I said with him and proven by you and Brad Dourif, is that as an actor, for me, if the person I'm working with is better than me, I love that. That gives you an opportunity to up your game, and because it's like, you know, you're playing catch and you want someone to be able to return the ball as well as you're throwing it, and even better. So you have to then start being better and working on that. So something like that. I mean, with Brad Dourif, I mean, I can only imagine how great that would have been working with him, because everything you see him in, he's always tossing, you know, fastballs, and that just forces you to up your game.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And another person I worked with that was awesome was I did a movie called Irresistible Force with Stacy Keach, and this was supposed to be a TV series actually for CBS. It was just the wrong timing, you know. During that time, Kevin Hooks was the director, and it was a weird time in life because it was like if you did martial arts on TV, they were saying that promotes violence. There was some weird thing about, you know, fighting promotes violence. And CBS would be, we shot it in Australia, and CBS would call Kevin every day and say, I don't want any kicks to the head. I don't want any blood. And Kevin was going, what? What are you crazy? You know, I got this girl that she kicks. So we did kicks to the head, and we did all this stuff. And you know, CBS just kind of hid it away that during that time, you know. I mean, look at what you see on TV now. just think they didn't even want to kick to the head back then because it was like, oh, we're promoting violence. You know, it was such a weird time. So that was another chance I had going into a TV series with Stacy Keach, phenomenal actor, you
Absolutely.
know, loved working with him. And you know, it's it's just I think all the things I did was like you know, was at a period when it wasn't easy, you know, for a woman action star.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely weird how far we've come with violence and stuff. I know different, territories, they have all their different deals. Like, I think in France or whatever, they're like no violence, but all this nudity and sex you could ever want. I know like some of the Asian territories,
Yeah.
like, there's certain things you can do and you can't do. It's almost like each society has its different rules that they're allowed to kind of push forward
Yeah.
on the people. You know what I mean?
That is so true. That is so true. Like some of like the countries, you know, but for me, it's like it's not violence. It's
Yeah.
like telling people you have to know how to defend yourself, you know, and it's entertainment and it's yeah, it's just like I said, it's a very strange time for me.
Yeah. To jump off of what Alex was saying up there about with Bergie talking about that actress that was kind of getting upset that he was like good. I got to assume that the opposite is like horrifying to be. That's a question for both of you guys, I guess, because it's like if I'm no actor at all, but like you got to be able to feed off the other person. So like, I'm sure you both have probably found yourself across from actors that aren't maybe as great. They're new to it, haven't quite mastered their game. And I'd assume that it would bring your game down because you would be like, well, why am I going to 10 when they're going to 6? You know what I mean? Is that kind of reality?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I did a favor for a friend of mine. I did a cameo in his film, and he actually wanted me to play the lead, but I turned it down because it wasn't like for me. But I said I do a cameo, and the guy I was playing opposite with couldn't remember his lines, and I just remember they literally put his lines on my forehead.
Oh
They
my
wrote it
God.
on like a little stick thing, and here I am standing with a thing on my forehead, right? So he could read the lines, and then it was like the old school thing. He'd write it on his hand, and like
Nice.
that. And it does. The main thing is, I think, is people not knowing the line, and then it throws. Don't you think it throws off the continuity? And you're trying to get into that character, and you're like, waiting, and I do think like if not that I'm saying like I'm a great actor, but I think you get better the more you do it, and the more you understand, the more comfortable you get with acting. But if you're with someone that really isn't any good, it does the same thing. Like if someone is better than you, it uplifts you and brings you to a higher level. Well, if someone doesn't know their lines and they're like not saying them normal or whatever, it brings you down too, because it's not a equal balance. And I think that that's what makes a good picture is you have that on both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to give and then take, and if it's I mean I worked with people on both spectrums, and yeah, I mean whenever you're working with someone who is either not as professional, or sometimes I mean I've dealt with people who are just lazy, that just they're like not taking it seriously, and yeah, it always brings everything down. And I mean, you might be able to do a great performance, but if you don't have anything to feed off of, you feel like you're in quicksand, that you're
Yeah.
just constantly getting pulled down. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's why I'm always like, hey, put me up against the best actor you have. I'd rather look not as good next to someone great than be pulled down by someone who's not as good as I am.
Mhm.
I always thought the dialogue on the hand was like a vaudeville act there. And till I witnessed it firsthand, me and Alex made a movie called DJ Stand the Man, and we're shooting in a wedding hall. And the main character's name's DJ Stand the Man, and there was a dude that had some downtime, much like it's always on set. So he dipped off into the basement where it was like a bar area, And I remember he came back upstairs and he was like talking to him, and he goes, "DJ Stan, the man." And I was like, "What?" My mind was blown. I was like, I didn't even think that was reality up until that. But I've dealt in the other dialogue thing is we did like one of our bigger budgeted films we worked on where we had some name talent come in, if you will, and I won't name talent because he was a very good dude, but like I think it's because he does so many movies. But we did do the poster board thing where we had to go get poster board and write his dialogue on it and hold it off screen for him. And he had special glasses that he wore so you don't see his eyes moving around. But yeah, but I can't speak because I've done cameos in my own films before, and it's like once that camera's on, it's like I go blank a little bit, you know what I mean? It's a whole different. We talk about that all the time on the show because a lot of people go, "Oh, acting's nothing to it. You read the lines, you say the lines, no big deal." And it's like once you get that red dot, you see that red dot on the camera,
Yeah.
and you know that it's your time, and you need to like get going. It's hard, you know. I give a lot of credit.
I have to tell you a funny story. When we were shooting Irresistible Force, we're in Australia and they had all the main characters cast, but they needed like small parts from the Australian. So Kevin was doing auditions, and Kevin is African American, and there weren't that many African American people coming in to audition. And he's like, "Oh, come on, I got to have him." And I remember him saying, "Spike Lee's going to be mad at me." So
Yeah.
anyway, this African American guy comes in, and Kevin's so excited. He goes, "I'm hiring him. He's got the part." And he goes, he's talking to the guy. He's like, "You got the part." And he goes, "Okay, let's just go over the line, just really quick." And the guy was like, "Oh my God." And Kevin started laughing, going, "Okay, let's do it right now." Yeah, that was funny. Like he was so bad. He had the part, but he couldn't say the lines, and Kevin couldn't hire him. He couldn't hire him because the guy was just not able to do it. And yeah, it's funny.
That's
So
tough.
yeah, it's like, yeah, you got to kind of know your lines. I mean, I'm not one that likes auditions, but I like to be on set and I'm more comfortable in front of the camera that way instead of like going and having to read for someone. So I don't know.
Yeah.
The guy was so bad, Kevin couldn't hire him, even though he wanted him to. He was trying to get him to say it right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those deals. It's definitely tough, you know. God bless their hearts for trying, though, at least, you know what I mean?
You were also in an episode of Hercules' Legendary Journeys as Enforcer 2, if I remember correctly. Yeah,
Yes. Uh-huh.
I was a big fan of the series. How was that? Coming in as a guest star for one episode. How was that experience?
Oh, I love that. They actually called me and they said, "We want you in this, right?" And at that time, I didn't watch the show, so I didn't know too much about it. So I said, "Okay, I got to come home and I got to watch the show." So I was watching like some of the episodes. I'm like, "Wow, this is going to be so cool. They're going to have this long wig on me, and I'll have these sexy clothes, and
Yeah,
it's going to be so awesome." And I get there, and they give me this little red wig, and they go,
yeah,
"This is your wig." And I'm like, "Oh my God, how am I going to get all my hair into that?" And these red contacts are going to be your eyes, and we're going to put this white scary makeup on you, and you have this like metal suit on because you're made of fire, right?
yeah.
And it was nothing like what I expected. I was like, and they're like, "Yeah, your character is between Beauty and the Beast, right?" And it was like, okay, well, I guess that's what I have to do. And I'll tell you, Kevin Sorbo at that time was one of the best actors I ever worked with, because how you were saying sometimes people don't like it if the actor is better than them, like you were saying that woman didn't like that. uh I've went against people where they didn't want my action to be as good as those to show them up. And at that time, Kevin, the more I did, the better I was. He was so happy. Yes, yes, do that. And I just loved that. I loved it so much about him because there was no ego at all. Not like, "Oh, you're going to look better than me. Your kick is going to look stronger." I've done movies where, I was with like one of my actor friends and we had to fight, and they're like, "Well, I can't fight you, so you're going to have to." I got cut in the arm and then we're going to continue fighting. And I remember in martial law, Brian Thompson was like, I can't fight a girl. And I'm like, oh my gosh, so I love that about Kevin, that he was just, the better I was, the more he loved it. So that was really cool. And I love the fact, we shot it in New Zealand. So
Yeah.
how cool is that? That was so much fun, to, go to New Zealand and shoot.
Yeah, I'm a huge Sam Raimi fan. I was always curious. Is he hands-on set? I know he just produced them. I think he was an executive producer. He probably directed the pilot or something like that. But was he somebody that you would see Roman set that when you were on?
Sam Raimi? Oh, wait. Is it Sam Raimi? Is that
Yeah.
the producer?
Yeah, it was Sam
The one
Raimi.
that was married to Lucy Lawless?
That's Rob Tapert. He's just as good, but he's not as
No,
good.
I never saw Sam Raimi. He was never there. It was Rob that was there.
Rob.
Like, yeah, he was right. Yeah. No, I mean, I don't even know. I didn't even know Sam Raimi was associated with Hercules, because
I think
I didn't see him there.
I think he was the big name that got it going.
He might have. He was not. Yeah, he was not on set, or I remember though, when I can't remember who was the director, but I remember the next episode coming in. Was it Anson Williams? Something I was on. Anson Williams was an F director, and I was like, oh, I wish Anson was my director.
Yeah.
But yeah, he might have like created the series or did something like that. But yeah, no, he wasn't on set at all. And I never heard his name mentioned when I was shooting Hercules.
Rob Tapert wanted all the credit, I heard.
Rob
He
put
did. He got all the credit. He was the, as far as I knew, he was the big cheese.
Yeah, they did. They produced Evil Dead together, and then I think a lot of their projects. They're friends, of course. So I think that
Yeah.
Bruce Campbell, I think, was part of the producing team. I think it was Bruce, Sam, and Rob.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, big kudos to Rob. How is that yeah, so you got the shoot in Australia, which is very cool. It's actiony, but there's dialogue and stuff like that. And I think you did answer this before, like in general, like you were talking about how certain people can get almost jealous. Not anybody from that, but just the fact that like you're the trifecta of you can act as well as do. A lot of people need stunt people to come in and do their action for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You did kind of catch a little bit of heat every now and then for that because, you have a star. And I know that what's his name didn't do it. Hercules, what's his name?
Kevin Sorbo.
Kevin Sorbo. But like just throughout and like when you were in like Hong Kong and stuff like that, because it's more of their culture, did you ever kind of catch heat for that or anything that you were something like that? I know maybe a female thing or anything like that.
No, in Hong Kong, never. They were always trying to, each movie I did, they were trying to top the stunts and complicated it, make it. And no, I've never once experienced that, only like in America. And actually, I'm not really gonna say what movie it is, but there was an A-listed movie and the director called me in. I was shooting China O'Brien then, and he wanted me to be in this big movie. And we had this interview and it went great. And I actually thought, wow, I got this part in this, not a Sylvester Stallone movie, something else.
Yeah.
So my agent never heard from them, right? And he called and they didn't return the call or whatever, right? So about maybe 9 months pass and I'm on an airplane and some guy comes up to me and he says, hey, that's really a shame why you didn't get to play that part. And I said, yeah, why didn't I? I said, I don't know why. And they said the lead actor, the A-listed star, says, I don't want a woman that could really fight. So they hired an actress that became an A-listed star because of that movie, because she wasn't really a fighter. So I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that. So, yeah, that went on, and not all the time, not a lot, but enough where you go, that kind of stinks,
Yeah. Gatekeepers are like the worst part of anything, you know what I mean? Which is what I think that person played. They were like, I have this powerful position, I can make calls. So it's like, leave that to the producers, not the stars, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, unfortunately, the thing is, we love making films, we love storytelling and all that, but one of the biggest problems about what we love to do is that a lot of people with huge egos get involved, and if their egos are bruised, it doesn't have to be anything that you did other than who you are, whether you're better a fighter, a better actor, and all that, and they and the fact is, what makes a good TV series, a good movie, all of that is everyone working together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
unfortunately, there's too many people that they get into their heads that, well, I'm the star, the this is all about me, and it's like, if you don't have good people around you, okay, then no one's going to watch. I mean, you need to have a good group of people to bring the story along, because if there's only one that's a decent actor in it, then you're going to be like, well, I'm bored, so I'll switch the channel. So I
Yeah.
mean, unfortunately, a lot of people are short-sighted with that. I also saw that you were on the Dukes of Hazzard reunion. How was
Yeah.
that? I mean, it was a big fan
Oh,
of the show and all that, and
yeah, that was so much fun. I tell you what was great. Well, first of all, I knew Catherine Bach
oh,
because she played a cameo in martial law. And I had to audition for that. That was one of the few movies I ever auditioned for, and got the part. And what I loved about that, well, first of all, I felt like an outsider because it's all these group, doing a reunion. You know what I mean? I wasn't in it, and I'm playing like Catherine's friend, and I remember like we shot it on set every day. I think I don't know if it was Warner Brothers studio we shot it at. And it was fun for me to every day go to the same set. Not like, when we do films like, oh,
yeah,
your location is an hour and a half away, or oh, it's here, or you've got to leave at 3 a.m. Every
Yeah.
single day had my parking spot, and I love that. And I love, just the family unit that all these people had, that were in the show. And they were saying that, I'm not sure which character passed away, but that's how they became the idea to get the reunion, is because they all came to the funeral and they said, let's do a reunion. And what was the uncle's name? Uncle,
oh,
um,
Not
do you
Rufus.
remember?
Is it Rufus?
He passed away. He I can't remember his name. He was the uncle, though. They called him uncle in it, and he actually had cancer and was going through chemo and come on the set, and that was very inspiring, that he was really sick and came to work, and I think he passed away, not that long after that. But it was just so nice to kind of get in this and it was a popular TV series. I knew all the characters, I knew the people, I was nervous at first going, oh my gosh, here I am coming into this, but they made me feel really comfortable, and right at home, and no egos there at all. Everybody was just having a good time. And that's, I say, I think that's what the best, shooting is when everybody does their work and does it with love and support. And it's interesting because a lot of times, I just did my own film, and the people that really, just are team players, you want to use them again over and over. And that's why you see a lot of movies, a lot of directors will use the same people, because then your atmosphere is going to be good, the movie's going to turn out good, and unfortunately sometimes, not everybody, as has that attitude on set, and that could ruin, the whole atmosphere, or even like the production, if you get
Yeah.
someone that's not a team player.
Well, you brought up your own film now. I know that you jumped into producing too as well. How'd you branch off from the acting and the martial arts stuff into starting to produce the films? Because I know you did around Rage of Honor, like the 1 and 2, and early, like it's not like you're doing it now, but like you've had your hand in producing for quite a while. You know what I mean?
Well, not I've never been a producer. I've been an associate producer.
So
And
when I
yes,
associate produce, I call it producing.
okay. But as far as my associate producer, what I was in this, I really didn't have any say in the film, and it was just a title. It wasn't like the producer that does all the work.
Yeah.
So, you know, how this came about is my partner, Robert Clancy. I've done over 70 movies, and he was like, you need to do a movie of your own. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then he goes, okay, well, let's just write it together. And he was like, what do you want to do? And he had an idea. And I said, no, I said, I want to do a Western. And he was like, a Western. I said, yeah, because I love Westerns. And there wasn't any really other than Annie Oakley. There's not that many
Yeah.
famous female gunslingers, and none especially that can fight. Right.
Right.
So I said, that's what I want to do. So we started writing it. We hired a writer. And I said, okay, I'm going to do a Kickstarter program. And a lot of friends of mine said, oh no, don't do it. You'll fail. And then you'll be embarrassed. And they'll say, a big martial art actor that has 5 million followers, he couldn't make it. So why do you think you're going to do it? So I started getting a little nervous going, yeah. And then I met a friend and I said, this person didn't make it, how am I going to make it? And he said, you're not him, you're you.
That's right.
So I said, you're right. I said I went for it, and within 3 days we passed our goal, and we became the second highest funding action picture in the history of Kickstarter. So I have such a philosophy: is don't fear, always like go for your goals. And like this thing, I almost went against my thing, like getting nervous that oh, I'd be so embarrassed if I didn't like make it. So always, just go for it, and with, put in 100% effort. So we did that. We raised all the money through fundraising. And the other thing I always said is, when I do my own movie, I want to put my action star friends in it. I want to do like an Expendables in this,
Yeah. Yeah.
do something different. I want to do a movie where everybody fights. It's not just your typical gunfight, saloon, like that kind of stuff. There's a little bit of gunplay, not that much. And, I have the biggest cast of action stars. I have Don the Dragon Wilson, Richard Norton, Keith Cook, Marcus Taylor, Benny the Jet Arquetis, Keith Vitale, and a lot of
Uh,
other ones.
yeah.
And, it was a small budget, but these guys all came because they believed in me and they all put their best foot forward. And I think, we're in like, we have about 3 more weeks of post and then we're done. We're having our premiere on October 7th.
Yeah.
And, I really think it became magic. Everybody, just, it was such a short shoot that I had Mike Moeller from Germany to be my choreographer, and I had the Swiss action team to come over too. And they did the action scenes, and I sent them to everybody. I said, no, your fight scenes, because we don't have time to rehearse it. Everybody did. And it just, I am so proud of it. I'm so proud of everything. And I feel like this isn't just my movie. I feel it's like everybody that backed my film, because if it wasn't for the fans or the backers, I wouldn't have done the movie. So, and my inspiration kind of was like Yellowstone. I love Yellowstone. And what I loved about it is that it was dark and gritty, and that's kind of how I geared this film, very, very powerful. All the characters are powerful. The women are powerful. And, yeah, I'm so excited for you guys, everybody to see it. And I hope you like it. So it was
The
it
Black
was an
Creek.
experience. I was experienced being the producer, right? And one of the writers and the lead actor, because it was hard. Like now, instead of sitting in my trailer studying my lines before I got to go shoot, I have to be on set and I have to make sure everything's going right, and I have to deal with any issues that's going on. So it was an experience for me, to do that. I sure is like, you probably know, like, being involved in the production and the
Yeah.
and acting as well.
Yeah.
So
And it's called Black Creek, right?
at Black Creek, yeah, we actually just put out a teaser. We have like a 45-second teaser, and then on September 8th at midnight, we're putting out the full like 2-minute trailer.
Very cool.
So yeah. So I'm excited. I hope for everybody to see it. Yeah.
I know you said there wasn't a lot of shooting in it. I'm curious, like with like the Rust tragedy, did that like affect other Western films, maybe making them kind of stray a little bit away from the shooting if need be, the shooting of guns, or did that have any effect on you guys when you guys were doing yours?
No, it didn't. It did have an effect that we have to make sure that the gun wrangler tells everybody and shows everybody, the weapon
Yeah.
that first AD does, and then the actor does it itself, and make sure everybody's comfortable with it. So, the security was definitely up. I know, like we had an issue using, you know, putting in CGI for the gun or using blanks,
Yeah.
and we did do a couple shots where we did use it. And I know like some of the people like, well, okay, nobody has to be in the room, just camera C, and we're going to shoot it here. So we were very safe on it. I did have a couple concerns with one of the female actresses, going, oh, being on the set with the guns, and I just assured her, I said, no, look at, everything's gonna be safe. If you're not comfortable, we'll deal with that. But, it is a concern from that issue that happened. But in the scheme of things, no, I did not have a lot of gunplay because I wanted it to be a action martial art film,
Yeah.
so we're using guns just a little bit because you have to,
You gotta.
but mostly, yeah, mostly, and I kind of like tried to think of it like John Wick, it's a little bit like over the top, it's a little bit, I didn't have, yeah, I probably had their catering budget, if not even, like for my film. Yeah, uh, but like to gear it something like that, like, and my goal is, and I think it's already happened, is that, someone would say, hey, you shot this in this many days of shooting with this budget. Can you imagine if I had like 20 days to shoot and I had $1 million to do it? And, like it's just been a blessing the way everything happened. And I think I already have someone that said, I want to fund the second one, so it's for me, I feel the direction I should be going in because everything just like fell into place. And, I just feel extremely, extremely blessed. And like you guys know, you do your own films, like you get spoiled. I want to do my own films because you have control. You have control, like, oh, I don't like that shot. Let's change it. Or this, let's edit it here or here and there, and I just did like another film and I went to the screening and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, well, I wouldn't have used that. I would have used this, or where's that shot, or where's that, and it gives you a different mindset because I thought I would never direct ever. I would never direct. And I've had about 4 people ask me to direct their projects. Oh, that's not me. And we have an editor, but we went over every scene in detail, like saying, no, we want this. I assure you 100% there's not any misses in this film because sometimes I see action pictures and I'm like, oh, that's a miss. Oh, that, that didn't work,
Right.
So I just, went over every little scene. So it makes you go, gosh, yeah, I wish I could just shoot on my own movie or
Yeah.
be involved with the post production, put it that way, because
Yeah.
it makes a big difference. That I think I look for things that if someone else would have done this film, they would not be looking at the things I did because I just cared about every single shot. How can I make it the best?
I've seen some. We had Patrick Kilpatrick on the show about a year ago. Great dude.
He's
Uh,
in Black Creek.
he's in Black Creek. Yeah, I seen him
Yeah.
promoting stuff. That's the first time I seen some stuff for it. Was he was
Yeah.
throwing some stuff around? You know what I mean?
Yeah. We sent him the script and he loved it. And he goes, but you got to add another scene in. I got to be in another scene. So we added a flashback in for him. We said, okay, we will do it.
Yeah.
We will add a flashback in. But that was, Patrick going, oh, I love it. I just, and he's in the opening scene and he like the whole story revolves on what happens into the opening scene. He was phenomenal. I love him. Love working with him.
He's definitely a ball of energy. Really nice guy.
Yeah.
He's so. I remember seeing him. I think he just turned like 33 years old or something like that. And I remember seeing him do like a stunt, jumping into a hole, like something that I wouldn't do at my age. and I was just blown away. I was blown away, dude. There's like he's I don't even know the proper term to put on him, but he's just amazing. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? It's
yeah,
it's wild. You know what I mean? I know you
yeah.
were, yeah,
Yeah, that's one thing I love about this film is because, all of us are over 50,
yeah,
and still in shape and still incredible action. And I'm so excited for people to see this, to see, and also people to think, I mean, when you look at it, like age is a weird thing in Hollywood, right? And
right.
you look at the main action stars, Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Liam Neeson,
Liam
Oh
they're
yeah.
all older
Even
guys, right?
Even Statham's getting up there. Keanu's even
Yeah.
up there a little bit. You know what I
Actually,
mean?
right, you're right. Donnie Yen,
Yeah,
Jackie Chan, right?
Jackie Chan.
And it's funny when it comes to women, it's like there's like an age weird thing, and it's like,
Yeah,
I just everybody is so good, so in shape, so tough. Martial arts are so good. We didn't have the leisure luxury to keep reshooting things over and over, so we had like one or two takes on a lot of stuff, but everybody just did so good, and I wanted to be an inspiration to people, to say, yeah, when I get that age I could do that, and I that thank God nobody got hurt. Everybody, did really well. Actually, Richard Norton came to the set with a pulled calf muscle, so we had to readjust his ending fight scene. Him and I fight in the end, and we had to readjust it because he had a hard time even walking. We're like, oh my gosh! But Richard's like, hey, we can do this. We're professionals. We know how to do
yeah,
it. So we had to change all the choreography at the last minute.
that's craziness. Yeah, yeah, it definitely looks great. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it. You were also in Dying for a Living. Speaking of Kilpatrick.
Well, no, I'm not in it yet. I think
Oh,
he hasn't finished it. He has to I think secure some more funds to finish it. And because he was in mine,
yeah.
he said, "Oh, I will if you're in mine." And I said,
How it goes.
Okay, all right, we can do that." And
Yeah.
so I haven't shot anything yet there. So that would be in the other part. So yeah, he's got like a good portion of it filmed.
Yeah, I got to give kudos to you again for the crowdfunding, because that's definitely like the hardest part. The funnest part's making it. The hardest and most discouraging part is finding the money. And
Absolutely.
just to get a successful, I know you did the crowdfunding thing, and it's like we crowdfunded once, and I don't we got like enough to get lunch at McDonald's, and that was like it. So whenever I see people really master and like be able
Yeah.
to land their goals, I'm super proud for them. But yeah, was there a lot of preparation that you guys went into as far as that going, with just figuring out the approach? Because I remember we did one for that DJ Stan the Man movie, and we thought we were geniuses. We brainstormed this big like fake Tonight Show setup with me
Uh-huh.
and the other producer, and the star of the movie was like the Jay Leno part. And like I said, I think we raised like $65. But like when you're going into something, which I'm very kudos and thank you to everybody who gave that $65. But did you guys have any worry of maybe this might not, maybe it's almost like catching lightning in a bottle, I think, with it, you know what I mean? Did you guys have like for lack of a better word, like a blueprint or a plan that you guys wanted to follow, to you knew where you were going to push it to, or who you were going to push it to? Do you go looking for like Western, like people that like Western film, like Western pages on Facebook, or did you guys plan something out, or you just kind of wing it and see where the cards fell with it?
No, because I know people that just winged it, just
Yeah,
put it out there. You can't, get out there and be you and say, hey, give me money.
right.
You got to have a plan. And lucky for me, my partner, Robert Clancy, is a master genius at this. We did a lot of research. We did like actually the poster that I had on my Kickstarter. We shot that in here. I shot that picture with my cell phone. He just created the poster. We did a lot of research. What works, what doesn't work, making it look so good, so professional, which, is all on him that he did this campaign. And I think that's a combination with a good fan base that I have. I have a lot of fans that were in it. And, it was hard because it's very hard to ask people for money. to get out there, you have to pound it every day, thank you, which, like I said, I love my backers, and I will do anything, for them, for helping me out. And I don't care what it was, whether they gave $2 or they gave $10,000, it's just that they came out and supported me.
Supported.
And it's so interesting because after I raised the money, a lot of people thought, oh, it's easy. So I saw a lot of my friends going out there and putting it on and not making it or canceling it. Or we actually had someone that copied our format identical, just
Really?
copied it, even so much so that on their graphic, they didn't take off Black Creek on the bottom. So you see for the movie, you see Black Creek. And
Wow.
Robert was like, hey, at least give me credit for my work, But
Horrible.
he did another campaign for someone else, and they were funded, so it's not easy. You have to have a good campaign together. You have to have a project. Why? You have to think, why would people want this? Your artwork has to be good, and I think, we just did a lot of research on it. We did, the best that we really could do. And that's what we did with the movie too, is give it our best. I mean, we were limited because of the budget, which was very small, and that how that is. Like, if you had more money, like I was like, oh, if I had one more day of shooting, but and it's always like, whatever your budget is, it's going to go over. It's going to go over slightly because things happen, and but yeah, I did a second campaign because we did a graphic novel to Black
Oh,
Creek as
really?
well.
Very
And
cool.
my friend said, that's a miracle you did it. You're never going to do it again. And I was like, okay, well, we're going to try. And we asked for much smaller this time, to do a graphic novel. And it's just because I met Marlon Shoup. He was a graphic novelist, and we've always, for 20 years, wanted to do a novel. And I said, well,
Yeah.
let's just do it on Black Creek, because we got the story, we got the characters, we could change it up. It's like, how did Cynthia, or my character Rose Jennings, how did she know martial arts? So we have a backstory. How did that come across? So we can add all these other things in. And we got 215% funded the second time, and a lot of people are like, oh, you're going to do a Kickstarter for Black Creek 2? Because we are definitely writing the script right now. And I'm like, oh, I hope not. But, I think too, we have to get all our incentives out to people, and make sure everybody gets what they're going to get. And that's a job in itself. That's really a big job. And two of us are just doing it all ourselves, and making sure all that happens. And then if we do another Kickstarter, we make sure everybody's happy, everybody's got what they're promised to. And yeah, so it's a whole science. It's probably one of the hardest things you can do, I think, is
Yeah.
get crowdfunded for it. So yeah.
I know you, what, 210% you guys hit for the graphic novel. What's like what would it write? I've been getting more into, I'm late in the game with comics and stuff. I always appreciated them, but I'm getting kind of more into them nowadays. What financially, what does it cost to kind of put together a graphic novel, and like how big of a run? Like, how many do you get printed out for, like what you guys were
Yeah,
going
well,
for?
this is not my area of expertise,
Okay.
graphic novels.
Yeah.
So I actually said, it depends, on like, our graphic novelist is a partner, an equal partner, so whatever we got in, that's, what we were going to share. And I don't know, it depends on who you get, are you going to get a colorist? Are you going to get a separate colorist? It could go anywhere from like 10,000 to $50,000, to do it. Depends, like, on like who you get. But the good thing is I've attracted attention to comic book people, companies, big stores, that reached out to me. So I actually met some people from Bad Idea, we're doing the John Wick comic book, and they said, any way we can help you, we'd love to, and I will, because it's not, I just thought, oh, hey, we'll just print them out, and we can sell them, and people can have it, that and we have all the characters from Black Creek in it, that they look at you finally you're in a comic book. And so it's a new world for me. So I don't know really exactly where it's going to venture, but we will have the comic book finished like maybe the second week of December.
Very cool.
So yeah, so working on both of those at the same time. And Black Belt Magazine actually is doing in their October issue, coming out with the first 8 pages, and because they liked it so much. So I think I don't know, I just think I like to say it's a blessing. I keep I think one of the reasons that I got popular is I'm very dominant on Facebook. I answer everybody's questions. I talk to people. I do it a lot, and I just realized that, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I give back to them, and I think that's what you need to do. If you don't, really, just like, oh yeah, just look at, I got how many followers, and you're just worried about that or whatever. But I think, the interesting thing was when you do the Kickstarter, they give you an analytic list of where your money comes from, right? And number 1 is Kickstarter. Number 2 is this, number 3 is Google, number 4 was Facebook. Facebook is your on the bottom line, that you get money from Facebook, and that was my number 1, where the money came in. So I think, you have to reach your fan base and involve them in it, as much as you can. And like we have updates, we message everybody with updates and what's going on, and constantly keeping people, here's a picture, here's this, here's that, and you can't just say, oh, thank you for the money, and I'm
Right.
going to do it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? You have to really got to put work into, thanking these people and appreciating, what they did. And I think that's a key component to being successful as well in
for
that
sure.
type of category. I know Black Belt Magazine they called me and they said, we want to put you on the cover of Black Belt Magazine.
Hell yeah.
And I've been on it many times, but they wanted to do is they said, for Black Creek, and they're like, well, we want to entitle it Queen of the Crowdfundraising. I was like, okay, I'll take that. That's a good title.
Yeah. I know that you're working on part 2 now, that you guys are going to start writing it, but when I think of Westerns, I automatically think of a trilogy because of like the Fistful
Oh,
of Dollars,
yeah.
another Fistful or a few more dollars, and then The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. You guys thinking about maybe stretching it to 3, or would you even want to go further?
No, we haven't got that far as 3. We have the sequel written.
Yeah.
It takes a completely different twist. It's
Okay.
totally different from the first one. But we're in the beginning stages. When we wrote Black Creek, we hired another writer as well. So the 3 of us were writing, and from the beginning to the end is so completely different because we kept changing it, kept making it better, and everybody
Yeah.
kept putting in. So right now with the second script, we're in the beginning stages, and I'm sure it's going to get changed so much. It's just like our basic, like little start, to it. And uh, hopefully there'll be a 3 or
I
a
did.
TV series. But yeah, we just think like, one step at a time. The first one, oh, we know that one's going to be successful. So, okay, let's start on the second one. And the thing is, mostly sequels, they're not as good as the first one, right?
Mm.
First one is always better. Once in a while, someone go, wow, yeah, that is good. So we're trying to up the game, on the other one, especially, if we get a bigger budget, we know we definitely can up the game.
Yeah, I think you guys are gonna do it. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
you got the graphic novel is gonna be that's big because now you're bringing in a whole different. Sometimes
Yeah.
people would do the graphic novel before even doing the film, so you have the first successful film under the belt. Then you follow up with that graphic novel that helps clear more way for part 2, and then you get it's just a machine. You know what I mean? You guys
Yeah,
are building
absolutely.
a brand with it, which is nice.
Yeah.
You know,
Hmm.
I dig that. Well, we get an eye for an eye too, of course.
Yeah.
Great name for a western as well as a revenge film. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
The,
That was interesting. What I've done. I remember Joel Schumacher.
yeah, yeah.
Schumacher. He directed it. I had to audition for that one.
Okay.
And, like I said, I don't like to audition, but I had to for that one, and I got the part. And it was interesting because it was just a small part, very small part as a teacher. But then Joel also brought me in as the martial art consultant, and that was different for me because I always been in front of the camera, not behind the camera, and it was interesting because when I first went in, I think the stunt coordinator didn't really feel he needed a consultant. He knew action and he just wanted to do that. And I remember he had Sally Field doing a spinning kick. And
Mm.
I was like, oh, that doesn't look good. Like I am like, when they say chefs go to a restaurant, they don't like to go to
Right.
restaurants because they always critique the food. Well, I always critique action, and I don't like watching action movies because I'm critiquing it so much, right? But when one comes out that's like really good, like when Robert Downey Jr. did the Wing Chun, in the
Yeah.
Sherlock Holmes, I loved it. I was like, oh my God, he did that so good. So, I mean, I'm so pleasantly happy when I do see it. But anyway, this was terrible. Like she was like hopping around and trying to kick to the face. And I'm like, first of all, you're not really a martial artist, And I said, it's easy, let's simple, let's just kick to the groin. And Sally Field goes to me, that won't hurt. You can't hurt someone kicking to the groin. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You're trying to do a spinning back kick to the guy's face and you think that's going to hurt him? Oh my gosh. And it was just weird. And then like she didn't want to listen to me and I didn't know why. And I was getting stressed out because I'm not behind the camera. Right. And then I realized the stunt coordinator was probably telling her, no, listen to me, And then I remember Joel Schumacher going, if you don't get out here and do this, I'm going to put Cynthia in that role. And I'm like, oh my Lord, don't be saying that, So it was a
Yeah.
definitely interesting experience, And I also worked with the girls on Charlie's Angels, the ones that, the latest one that Drew Barrymore did.
Oh,
So
how'd that go?
yeah, I trained them for like 3 weeks, and that was fun because I'm like, wow, I'm normally in this, and now I'm not in this, but I'm teaching them. And, it was interesting because you're dealing with people that don't know martial arts and this and that, and like the one girl was, oh, I got to keep my hands up here. I says, yeah, but if you do that, nobody's going to see your face. They're not going to know it's you. They could think it's a double. Oh yeah, right. So you just have to. I had to be really tough and strong. Like one of them was like, I just want to do ab exercises. Like, well, you got to look good. And the one thing is, I said, look it when you're doing this series, right? And I only did 3 weeks. They wanted me to go to Florida and continue, but I couldn't because I had a acting job coming up that I had to do, which was, more important. But I said, when you're fighting, you look tough. When you're not fighting, you can look sexy and beautiful, right? And when I saw the first one, I was like, they're climbing a wall in high heels. And I'm like, oh no, and they didn't listen to what I said and it didn't work. I think they canceled it after the third series, and then they called me in for the poster. And what I wanted is the one girl was pretty athletic. I wanted her to do a jumping kick, which I thought she could like here, and the other two on the side. And they come in these heels like this. I said, I can't have you do that. I said, you're going to break your ankle, and they were like, no, we got to have these like heels on. So they ended up like just like standing there and stuff, and it's like, I think maybe if they would have really made it realistically that, being tough and, just having like, tactical clothes on or clothes that every day, not looking glamorous, maybe it would have worked a little better, that, you know what I mean? Because obviously I don't like to see that. I'm like, oh, why they have the heels on fighting?
Yeah, they didn't put them on
I
wide.
did it, so I did it
Yeah.
in one of the Hong Kong movies. I think it was it Lady Reporter? Corey Haim had me fighting heels, but I could do it. I could make it look
Yeah.
working, but
Yeah.
not everybody could pull that one off.
Yeah. I agree with you with watching films and being like, that's probably the worst part outside of the headaches and hassles. The worst part of like making films is the fact that like when you do watch a movie, you look for the little problems in it and what you could have done better or what they didn't do. I was curious, did you ever see JCVD, the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie?
Which one? Which
It's
one?
called
Oh,
JCVD.
the one that was like streaming or
Yeah, it
something?
was like
That was,
roughly based off his life, but not. It was like a weird
yeah.
thing.
No, no, I haven't seen it.
I always recommend it because the opening to that, and you might appreciate it as a martial arts person. I think it has one of the greatest openings ever. And I won't tease anything for it, but if you get a chance to check it out, I'd love to hear your
Oh,
opinion someday on it. Yeah, 'cause it's just like, I guess I can tease. It's like
yeah,
it's about his life where he's Jean-Claude Van Damme making movies, and like the first like 10 minutes, like during the credits, is just one scene of him moving through like almost the course of beating up different people, and then at the end of it, it's the end of the credits. But like
yeah.
the way they do it is like pretty incredible, and it's just like it's very,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
yeah,
I'll have to check that out because you know, I that's what I did with Black Creek. I kind of geared it after uh one of the Yellowstone ones. I don't know which one it was, the prequel,
mm,
where the guy comes in and he kills all the nuns,
yeah,
right? Do you remember that scene? And then in Headhunters with Al Pacino in the beginning, everybody's at this party and it's so nice, and the guy just ends up killing them all. It's
yeah,
shock factor. And uh I that's why I try to gear Black Creek is like the opening is going to be very, very dramatic. And like you said, that's great. And Kingsman, when they did the Kingsman, with Colin Firth, right? Do you
yeah.
remember when he comes to the
Alex
church?
Houston.
I love that. That blew my mind. And Deadpool, the opening scene with the Deadpool Wolverine in this new one. I
Uh-oh.
love that. I love it was comedy, but obviously they have like someone that knows martial arts in that suit, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, all right, I'll have to check that out because I love that, because that's what sucks me in is right from the beginning. If you suck me in with that type of strong, shocking action, that's the kind of movies I like to watch.
The movie as a whole is not that fantastic,
Just
but
the opening, just watch the
that
beginning.
first 10 minutes is like probably the reason why they made the movie. You know what I mean? Like, this is what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know we brought up Fast Getaway for a second. Did we ask what it was like to work with Corey Haim? We're from the 80s, huge Corey Haim
Yeah.
fans. Um
Yeah.
he,
Well,
he, he-
Corey was like 18 or 19 at
yeah.
that time. And I remember him, saying, wow, I'm 18 or 19 and I support my parents, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
wow. And I'll tell you, he was great to work with. I love working with him, but he was also like a little prankster, a little jokester. And we're doing this scene, and I have to kick him with a high heel on, right? So I
Yeah.
asked him to put a pad on. I said, put a pad on, because even though I don't kick you hard, that little spiky heel is going to hurt. And he's like, he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't put a pad on. So I did it, and I did it really light. We finished the scene and he's like walking around and all this and that. Then the next day we come to the set, and one of the producers comes up to me. She's really angry at me. And she's like, we can't shoot today. We can't shoot that scene. Why? Because you punctured Corey's lung. And I went, what? You punctured his lung. You can't shoot today. And I was like, there's no way. I didn't even have a mark on him. I just like tapped him, right? And now I'm all stressed out going, what the heck is going on? And then I'm going back to my trailer, and I hear this music playing, that's when, they have the big boom boxes, and here he is
Yeah.
dancing, and he's like, I'm like, Corey, what's going on? They said I punctured your lung. He goes, I just said that. I didn't want to work today. I
Oh,
was like, oh my God, you got me in so much trouble, and I went back and said, he's fine. But
yeah.
he was like a prankster. But that movie actually almost got a theatrical. It almost got a theatrical. And they were airing it in Idaho. That was their test market. They were going to test it there because back then they had an audience to test it. And then they brought in Corey, and Corey totally changed his look. He was very goth. He had black hair, and he just like went off on a whole different tangent, and the people went, oh no, we don't want to go see that in the theaters. So just on that factor of him not selling it didn't get a theatrical.
Crazy.
But it was fun to do those two movies. I mean, I loved working with Kenny Lerner and Leo Rossi and Corey. It was was a fun movie. Couple of like little strange things that went on that, but yeah, it was fun. It was fun, and it was fun for me because I played more of a character and a bad person, you know. So
Yeah.
little over the top.
Even though Ohio didn't appreciate it, I own both VHS in my collection as we speak. What's better
You
than
still
that? I
have
mean,
them.
that's what you really want at the end of the day, right?
Well, you never know; they might come back someday, right?
Oh
I
yeah.
actually I don't have any of those left VHSs though, but
No. Do you, as an artist like that, do you collect your own films? I know I do. Everything we make, I have in a pile somewhere. Do you gather them up?
no, I don't. Actually, it's interesting because, my partner Robert got them all for me. He got them on eBay or here and there. And
Yeah.
so now there is a stack of all my movies, but I don't like watching my own films. Like I'll watch it once or twice, you know. First time I'm too critical. Then the second time I'm like, oh, okay, like it's that chef thing, right? Like, oh, look at this.
Yeah.
But for the first time I'm like really really excited for people to see Black Creek, because if people don't like it they could just blame me because that was my vision and what I had to work with, but I think now I have one of almost all my movies because he collected them all and has them somewhere, and I think when I travel abroad or something he'll stick one in and watch it.
Yeah, it's definitely good. Like I said, I'm with you. Like I don't religiously watch them. Some of them I've never even watched, but I like to know that I have a physical copy of.
Oh,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
I'd have to watch them once. I have to, curiosity, kill the cat. Have to see it, one time. But it's interesting because like I was at a Canadian Film Festival and they were showing Righting Wrongs, that movie I
Yeah.
did with you and View. And they showed it in a theater and it was remastered and stuff. And I'm looking at some of the scenes. I don't even remember shooting them, which was strange, but it was great to see all these people reacting and loving it. And it's a whole generation that probably didn't even know who I was, and just went on the action. And that's how good the action was back in Hong Kong, is that it could still hold up today. And, a lot of those films are coming out, they're being released now, like through Vinegar Syndrome and 88 Films, Eureka. They've taken all those Hong Kong movies or movies that, a lot of people have done in the 90s and remastered them on 4K to Blu-ray and put out a nice story on them, and it's really great because now a whole new generation can see it, and a lot of people that love those movies can see it in a better format. So I think it's really cool that that's happening now.
Yeah, I love all those movies, and I'm glad to see they're getting love again. You know, those movies were they're like the VHS store, like that was such a huge part of people's life, going to rent movies and like those
Yeah.
movies that were there. You know what I mean? And I'm glad.
The funny thing is, like, remember when the video stores were so popular? They used to have a Cynthia Rothrock section. And I remember Elaine from Seinfeld was in a video store, and people kept calling me saying, yeah, she was in front of like one of my movies that was in the video store, my
Very
section.
cool.
I was like, oh my God. And we had, screenshot it, now I have a picture of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was funny. Yeah, I remember, in I think it was Time Magazine. I was like, oh my God, we made Time Magazine. It was me, Don Wilson, and Andrew Stevens that were the top video sales for that era in the video stores. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. The VH, it's. I'd love to see like the later calculations of like how everything's digital now. You know what I mean? Like everybody's got Netflix compared to the mom and pop shop or even a Blockbuster or
Yeah.
Hollywood Video. I'm curious what the effects of that'll be. If it'll still be spawning people that want to go make films. You know what I mean? Like because it was such a activity. It was such an event.
Yeah.
Every Friday night would go to the VHS store, would get a comedy,
Yes.
an action movie. You know what I mean? It was just like,
Yeah.
and it kind of grows your love for cinema as a kid,
Right.
making it a thing. Where I don't know, that might be lost with digital, but who knows?
Yeah. Well, how about like Quentin Tarantino, right? He started off as a video store,
Yeah,
working in a video store, and that's how he knew all these action movies because he
yeah,
worked in the video store.
yeah. QT's the man. I love QT because like many reasons, but like came from he's really that underdog story of like you'll hear of a lot of filmmakers you know, that came up, they might have came with a little money in their pocket to begin with, you know what I mean? But Quentin's a dude that it was him, his mother was his single mother for the most part, and he really had nothing, and it was just passion,
Yeah.
creativity, and love for cinema that got him to literally probably the biggest name in film today. You know what I mean? Much kudos.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love
Yeah. I definitely love his style. His style is awesome.
Kill Bill. Speaking of martial arts films, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Supposedly he's doing a third installment, but I don't know.
Oh, really?
That's what he's flirted with the idea for years, but now he says he's only doing like one more movie.
Well, I knew from David, you know, being friends with David, that it wasn't intentional to shoot 2 movies. It was just to shoot one.
Yeah.
But he shot so much footage that they made it into 2. And I remember David was so happy because he got paid double then. Then they had to pay him double, you know, because they turned it into 2 movies.
I was so happy for David that because as you know, careers kind of go up and down sometimes, that David got to have that resurfacing kind of before the end. So it was due to him. He got his flowers. I was very happy to hear that he got his flowers, you know?
Yep.
But it's weird because, you know, that, what is it? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, his last film, like got very well received. And I don't know, like he almost, I don't want him to quit making movies, but like if he was to throw an end on it, they're going to be they're hard. They're awkwardly hard on Quentin every now and then. You know what I mean?
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have a new film coming out called Lady Scorpions that I did, and I shot it with Shannon, and she produced Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and she produced People 8. And I just went to the screening the other day, and actually I think it's gonna have a limited theatrical release, which is very cool.
Yeah.
But when I saw the screening, I could see some of the Tarantino-ish like shooting and the colors and the music, you know, and I said, yeah, I see a little bit of that in there. Yeah. So that's another film. And we shot it in Mexico last year, but we up until now, we couldn't speak about it, couldn't say the name of it, couldn't say we were shooting it. I mean, it was really, really tight-lipped, you know, and everybody's like, now we could talk about it. They're like, I didn't know you did that movie. I said, yeah, I know, I couldn't say anything.
Yeah. Well, he's definitely, I mean, when I think of filmmakers that put their stamp on things, I'd have to bring Sam Raimi up again, Coen brothers to a degree. Even the Coen brothers kind of took a lot from Sam Raimi. They're friends, so it's all good. But like, because they one of them, I think Joel Coen edited Evil Dead 2. Yeah. So like they're all mixed together. But Tarantino's one of those. I always make the joke of I've been making movies so long that I remember when in the beginning people would go, what do you think of Steven Spielberg? And then I remember the crossover when they said, what do you think of Quentin Tarantino? So I've been doing it long enough to kind of get both claims in there. So
yeah.
Well, Cynthia, this was a lot of fun. You know, we're definitely wishing you. Looking forward to seeing Black Creek. Wishing you all the best of luck with it. You're always welcome to come back on the show if you want to promote it and talk about whatever. You know what I mean? This was a very very good thing. You know.
Well, I hope you guys like it. You know, everybody asked me on Facebook, when's it coming out? And I'm like, they don't understand. You know, well, we sell it, and then whoever picks it up, they determine when it comes out. You know, I think that, you know, I have control when it's going to come out, you know, and I have to constantly say, we'll see, you know, we have to sell it first. So hopefully when it comes out, we can talk about it again, and I hope you guys really enjoy it. And you know, because I know you guys know all the hard work that goes into it, like doing independent pictures, and how tough it is to, you know, get that look, get the color, you know, get everything. So I'm excited for you guys to see it and see what you think about it.
And we wish you a good distribution too, because those people that are asking questions that don't know about it, distribution can be tough. They could, once you sign on, they can change the name of the movie. They can do whatever they want to do at that point. Release it whenever.
I know they can recut it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. We usually do finish up with one last question though.
Okay.
You've had quite the career in film. and the martial arts stuff. And we get a lot of filmmakers, like I said, comedians, authors, actors that in there. We always like to ask, do you have any advice for people that might find themselves either in a lull or just they've been doing it for a while and they're like, it's not working out for me. Should I quit? Should I keep going? Do you have any advice that you would give to somebody kind of in maybe like a not so bright place at the time with their creative endeavor?
Yeah, I think if that's your passion, you have to follow it. Life has ups and downs, and I'm a thorough believer of, like I said before, is make your goals work. You just keep going for it. You've got to put the homework into it. It's not easy, you know what I mean? You can't just say, "Oh, I want to be an actor. Someone's going to come and find me." You have to study hard, you have to meet the right people. You have to put whatever your endeavor is, you have to put 100% work into it. And if you're not there and you go, "Oh, I don't think I could do it," then maybe it's time to do something else. But if that's your passion, and I think we all find at some point in our life what our passion is, and you got to make it work. And if you deal with a negativity like, "Oh, should I give up?" That's not the attitude you want, because that's failure right away. You've got to say, "I'm not giving up." And sometimes it's hard for people because the financial gain isn't coming right in right there. So you do something that, to make money that isn't your passion, but you keep your focus on your passion, on what you want to do, and you don't give up. And why isn't it working? Why isn't it happening? Well, you got to do your homework. Like I said, research. Why? Is it because I'm not a good actor? I don't know the right people. How do I get to meet the right people? Things like that. And like I said, like if I would have listened to some of my friends and thought, "Oh my gosh, I'm not going to do the Kickstarter because it would have failed," I wouldn't have done my movie. And I just said, I'm going for it. I'm going for it no matter what, and I'm not going to fail. So you got to have that. I think that kind of attitude, to get what you really want, because it's not easy for most of us to, especially in this industry, to just get it handed to us.
Yeah, I agree. Great advice. Great advice. Alex, do you want to say anything? I see you shaking your head over there in agreement.
I'm just agreeing. I mean, it's one of those things that Matt and myself, we got full-time jobs that we do that to pay the bills, and when we're not doing that, we're writing, we're filming, we're podcasting.
Aston, yeah.
Yeah, we're doing everything and anything that we can. And it's one of those things, like you said, if it's your passion, you keep on going for it. And
Yeah.
if you realize that it's not your passion, then you say, "Well, it was a good run," and you move on. But
Exactly. And I think what it is too is you have to love what you're doing.
Yeah.
If it doesn't become a love and you're not giving it with all your heart, maybe that's not where you're supposed to be, you know.
Loving is definitely a super important, 'cause there's certain
Yeah.
people that'll enter in for financial and it's
Yes.
always trouble. It's always trouble. You gotta,
Yeah, absolutely.
there's gonna be
I
ups
mean,
and yeah.
when I did my movie, my budget was small, but it was bigger compared to some movies that people do. And I've had people say, "Oh, just take half of that, keep the other half and do it cheap." And I'm like, "No, I'm not. Every single penny is going into this, even if I had to put my own into it after." I said, because it's not about the money. It's my first film. I want it to be great. Of course, I want to make money,
Right.
but my main thing is doing it right, doing it the best I can, not cheaping it out, and not collecting, "Oh, here, I'm putting money in my pocket and make it cheaper." No, you got to strive to do the best you can. And like I said, editing, editing wise, take that time to go, "This doesn't look right. Let's do this. Let's do that." And I think I put so much money into my production. We use 3 red cameras, right? And that kind of saved us. It was very expensive, and people are like, "Why, you don't need that camera. You could get a cheaper camera and you could get this one or this." That really saved us. Like, there's things that you learn because we could cut in. We shot in 7K. We had, I think, 34 terabytes of footage,
Yikes.
which is crazy. But, if I didn't have that, I might not have had the movie that I envisioned, that I was able to do that, so I think, you can't, you got to think of your project, not so much, "Oh, can I cheapen this and, take this here or something like that. You got to put everything into your project, and do the best you can for that budget, and I think maybe sometimes people don't understand, like say, oh yeah, well, that's not as good as John Wick. Yeah, well, that was like 300 million more than what I had in my budget. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
people understand that, you're limited on what you could do and you just do the best that you can. Yeah.
Yeah, don't skimp on your art because it will live longer than you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like,
Exactly. Right. Yep. Yep.
yeah.
Yep. So,
Well,
well,
thank
good
you.
luck on your projects too.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We'll send
Yeah.
Alex, we'll send you some links. You can take a peek.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. We like to share our art around, you know what I mean? Doing it big.
Yeah.
Well, this was fantastic. Like I said, we'd love to have you back on again. You know what I mean? This was good times. And
Cool.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. Do you want to tell people where they can check into you?
Yeah, well, on Facebook, I'm there. There's a lot of fake profiles of me. There's even, it's really crazy. There's even people that comment on my pictures in the comments as Cynthia Rothrock that aren't me. I'm like, why do you do this, right? So, I have one page, and you'll see I post every single day, so you'll see all my personal pictures on that. I have that. I have a YouTube channel, which is Cynthia Rothrock channel. I have Instagram, which is Cynthia Rothrock Official. So people can get a hold of me there. I have a martial art association, which is association.cynthiarothrockofficial.com. Where people can learn martial arts and do things like that. And there's a lot of ways, get in touch with me. And like I said, if other than like if you say hi to me, I might not answer back hi, but if you say, hey, how do you do this or how do you do that, or something like, I'll totally answer everybody on that. So you can check on my Facebook page. You can see our trailer. Our new trailer is coming out on my YouTube channel, which will be September 8th at midnight. So people could get a full look at the full trailer instead of a teaser. So yep, that's a good way to get in touch with me. Very easy on social media to talk to me.
Hell yeah. Okay. Everybody get out there and support Cynthia and Black Creek. You're in the know. We're putting you in the know now, so you can go pop it in. Check
Yeah,
it.
and if you want, actually we still have our campaigns going on. We didn't shut them off, but like for the graphic novel, it's Black Creek graphicnovel.com, and that'll take you to Indiegogo, and people could still get copies of it, or you could actually see the program, what we're doing. And we also have blackcreekmovie.com, which will take you to the movie site. We do have something on there for our premiere. We're going to have a very small section of VIP tickets people could purchase, because I think right now, I went to the Dragon Fest Festival yesterday and everybody wants to come to the premiere. We only have like we have a 410 seat theater, and within just with the cast and crew, we had over 300 tickets.
Yeah.
So we're like, because I gave everybody that option, so they could go there. And also they could check out, get more information on what it's about a little bit, and some of the artwork on the graphic novel and stuff. So I try to keep everybody updated as much as I can.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
You're doing
All right.
You're
Well,
doing
you
a
guys
lot.
have
I
a
like
great
it.
rest of your day.
You too. Thank you very much. I see the sun shining bright over there. Ours is going down.
Yeah, it is. It's very hot here right now.
So bright you need shades. What's that David Lee
Yeah,
Roth
I know. I
saying?
have a little light right back there coming in. I need like what you have, the screen. I do have one actually right there. I could have put it
His
around.
divider.
Yeah.
It's like David Lee Roth, what did he say? I gotta wear sunglasses because my future is so bright. That was his deal. But fantastic. Have a great remainder of the day over there, and we'll keep in touch, and we'll
Sounds
talk
great.
soon. All right, thank you
Perfect.
very much.
All right, you take care.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was a lot of fun, man. We hope y'all out there enjoyed that episode with Cynthia. Definitely go out there and support her, support Black Creek. Like I said before, I've seen some earlier promo stuff for it. Looks really good. I'm a sucker for Westerns. I love Westerns. The nitty gritty. You know what I mean? That's the way it used to be. Did I ever tell you that I was such a little child that could be so easily impressionable that when I'd see black and white TV, and I actually thought that back in the day it was just black and white. There was no color, like in real life. Like in real
It's,
life, there was no such thing as color.
it's still black and white.
That's why black and white TVs were black and white, because there was just no color. It was before the era of color. So everybody was walking around in grays, blacks, and whites. You know what I mean? And I thought that that was just normal life.
Wait, you're talking about like Pleasantville, living in
Ple-
Pleasant.
Like Pleasantville. Like I actually, I'm due a royalty check for Pleasantville because I thought that up first in my mind. Um, but it's okay. It's all right. They can keep it. Why not? I'll hook it up. Toby Maguire, I believe.
Yeah, and
Talk about Sam, and we talk about his boy Sam Raimi in this episode. That was a lot of fun. I always got to give praise to Sam whenever I can, even if he wasn't on the set of Hercules. He was always in my heart, and that's all that really matters. You know what I mean? But yeah, this was a great episode. We had a lot of fun. The Hawkman hooked us up, and like I said, I knew some of those films from my past, and enjoyed those films, and I was happy and excited when I heard that we had her coming to the show, and it was a lot of fun. We had even more fun than I expected, and I knew it was going to be good times. You know what I mean? It's like a trip down memory lane. It's cool when you grow up kind of watching people in their films, and then you get to kind of chat with them. It's kind of like an old friend, which is very cool. Especially to people that considered movies friends, because they might not have had a lot of their own, which I think me and the Hawkman might fall into that category. But it's a beautiful thing, you know what I mean? It's a beautiful thing. So definitely we hope you dug this show. I hope you show support to Cynthia, show support to Black Creek, show support to the BoomBastiCAST. Much love. And again, kudos, man. She raised some big funds for the film. And then they get the graphic novel. And when I said big kudos for that, I'm not just, blowing smoke, because getting money, we've known a few people that have been lucked out and kind of got some budgets on the crowdfunding stuff, and it's never an easy feat. For every one person that makes good on crowdfunding, you're probably talking about 100, maybe 500 things that don't. You know what I mean? And that's an achievement in itself. That's why I gave her a little kudos and some respect on the show, because the equivalent, like, in my mind, like the equivalent to getting a film made, because that's kind of a hassle. Like that equivalent is to like just getting a crowdfunded page successful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how difficult it can be. And I think anybody from any walk of life, doesn't have to be a filmmaker or an artist. The idea of getting people to give you your money for anything that they're not like quite buying, it's doesn't materialize until later. You know what I mean? Just kind of trust you with the money to go make this product and bring it back to them. I think you guys, everybody out there knows how difficult that is. And they done did it. And I know that like I said, I seen Patrick was throwing out some either stills of it, or I forget what he was throwing around, something of it. There's like a light teaser trailer up now. By the time you guys hear this episode, the movie could be out for all I know. We're a little back on, we do the once a month guest thing. So I can't really tell you in the foreseeable future when this is popping, but it's definitely a gun. It's a bullet in the chamber. It's a hot gun, and everybody wants to grab on. You know what I mean? That sounded dirty, even though it wasn't supposed to be. But yeah, this was a good time. So Alex, you want to say anything else before we dip out?
Nothing much other than it was great talking to her. It was great talking about, just making films, acting, and all that goes into it. And it's always great to talk shop with people, especially those who understand the trials and tribulations of making, films for not a lot of money. And and the thing is that, as I always say, is that if you're making a film, always try to do your best. I know that one of the problems I've found is that some people are like, well, I don't have a lot of money, but hey, there were, films considered B films
Yep.
back in the day. So I'm going just to make a B film and all of that. But the thing that they don't understand is those who made B films back then were trying to make A films.
Right.
Okay. And because of money and other things, they just didn't quite get to the level that, an A
It's
film would
tough.
get.
I mean, it's hard. It's making a
Yeah,
film is
it's
hard
tough.
work for
But
real.
the thing is that they go for as best of a product as they can. And
Right.
because of money or other things, they don't quite get as high as one would like. But they're good because they care, that they put a lot of effort. I mean, Black Creek, when it comes out, I'm going to say this now. I know for a fact that this is going to be a good film. Okay? Because she has put her heart and soul in it. She has worked hard. She's gotten great people to be a part of it. And that itself, I mean, I'm sure that if you watch it, some asshole's going to say, you know what? This isn't John Wick. I mean, John Wick is, so much, more fluid or more cool or better fights and all that. But then again, the budget that she's working with is not a John Wick budget. Okay? And that's what you always have to put in mind, that when you're watching a film, that I remember I was doing no, we were talking to Yui Bowl about um uh the Dungeon Siege tale that he did, and with Jason Statham. And when that movie came out, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, it's not as good as Lord of the Rings." Well, he didn't have a Lord of the Rings budget,
Right.
so that's the thing. You can't compare these films to other films. You have
Right.
to take it on its face value. Do you
Sure.
enjoy the story? Do you enjoy the action? Do you enjoy the actors? That's what's important. If you spend the whole time saying, well, I saw this $1 billion movie, which I think is better shot than this movie that they shot for, I don't know, 300,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
Of course, if you got $1 billion budget, things are going to be a little bit more polished. But that's why I will always champion and support and love films that aren't made for $1 billion, because those people are putting their heart and soul and they're trying to make it good.
Right.
They're trying to give fans what they want. And that's why there's so many films coming out of Hollywood that are remakes, rehashes, no imagination, no thought, and they stink. What we need is new ideas, or more, just heart and soul in the project.
I can appreciate things like that,
Yeah.
because I'm a fan of cinema, you know. But I agree with you completely. I was just contemplating to myself. I said, normal people do the interview and then maniacs do the intro and outro. I don't know what's going on here. But definitely, it was a pleasure, man. I can't wait to have her back on the future. Very sweet, knows her stuff, super talented. Just wearing that many hats and getting stuff done is an accomplishment and hard to do. Yeah, it's an art form, so people out there that just watch it might go, it can't be that hard. It's an art form, it ain't out there building a house or whatever, but it can be trying, you know what I mean, physically and mentally. It can be tough stuff. So I always give kudos to folks out there doing it and living a dream, and she's passionate about the film. You talk to so many filmmakers that aren't even passionate about the films they're making, and you're like, well, if you're not passionate about it, why am I going to be passionate about it? You know what I mean? So I agree with the Hawk Man 110% when he says, hey, I haven't seen it yet, but he can vibe well with it, that it's going to be pretty good. And I agree with you. The passion, she's seen clips of it, and she knows what she's got to work with, and she's excited and she's passionate, and that's it. I love it. You know what I mean? Passion's a beautiful thing, and it's one of those things where it's like, it's magic. You know what I mean? So many people that we know, and we've been down that road before, like the trampling that you can get trying to make creative things. It's almost like you're given a bag of passion, and every time somebody whacks that bag, you lose a little passion. It's not maybe not even your fault. It's just the fact that this didn't work or that didn't work, and it can be very darkness. It can be the dark side. It can be a black creek. Well, of darkness rolling through your life, and yeah, you just got to be careful. So and that's what I always say about people where it's like, be careful of who like I'm going into like we're going into like some big advice, metaphoric. I'm going into a different dimension. I'm gonna close my eyes and I'm in outer space while I say this. But anybody out there creative, man, you gotta your passion, you gotta take care of it. You gotta harness it like it's a child. You know what I mean? Because you have bad interactions with the wrong people. Situations come up, and each one's like a kick in the passion's sack, and it can empty it out, and it can other not even by your own doing, by just decisions of people that you're working with, projects that you choose. Your passion could be taken away from you. You know what I mean? It could be, I hate to say it, but I'd have to admit that I've been in situations before where I've dealt with people that just kind of didn't care about my time, or whatever I was, whatever, and been treated like garbage when I tried to be good. And it's a kick in the passion. You know what I mean? You leave going, well, why do I put up with these people or this situation? And sometimes you have to. That's just part of the game, and it can be tough for you. It's very discouraging sometimes, and some people go, well, why? People are just people. Don't let them bother you. It's when they go at your passion, you know what I mean? It's troublesome. And as much as I hate to say it, it's true that people can throw some water on your fire, you know what I mean? Throw some sand on your fire, and bring it down. And it's unfortunate. But Cynthia's not that way. And she's full of passion, and she's inspiringly full of passion. And that's probably my favorite thing to walk away with today, is that she's been doing it for a little bit, and she still has that passion and desire and hunger to get her vision out there. You know what I mean? And there's nothing more inspirational than that. And much love to Cynthia and everybody on Black Creek. And I'm excited to check it out. I can't wait to see it. And I'm vibing with the Hauck, man, dude. It's going to be fun times. It's going to be good stuff, because passion's the most important thing behind it. And excitement, seeing her excitement she has for it, makes me know we got something special. You know what I mean? So with that being said, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you heard it somewhere, go hear it somewhere else. Rock it. Give me those views. I'm assuming that you're watching it on the UE tubes, the best place to watch BoomBastiCAST episodes, next to the most glorious place to watch BoomBastiCAST, as everybody knows, on that Patreon service. That Boombastic streaming, catching all the podcasts and the films are up there for anybody looking to do a little support. We never had luck with crowdfunding, so go support the Patreon, make us feel like humans. And we hope you all enjoyed this episode. We'll catch y'all on the next episode of the BoomBastiCAST. Peace.